It is hot right now in the tech market. If you can get some tech skills under your belt, you can go out there and find you a job pretty quick and in a hurry. This article is basically talking about how basically, this year and just in the month of July, I believe it's 6,000 layoffs have happened in the tech space. But just this year, about 30,000 tech workers have lost their jobs, through July. Um, and, trying to figure out, well, why is this happening? If you're hearing so many stories about things are actually getting better, as far as the pandemic is concerned, and people are actually finding that they can transition into tech careers. What's happening with all these people, who are potentially losing their tech jobs? So, like I said, it's we theoretically on the other side of the pandemic. I know we're kind of acting like there never was one, in most parts of the country. So, do you guys have any thoughts as to why you might see, tech folks actually losing their jobs? Like if you were to look at Coinbase, we can talk a little bit about that one. That they just laid off 200.
Hmm.
Tesla's laid off some folks. There's a lot of companies, not humongous layoffs, but there's a lot of companies that are doing 50 here, 200 there, 600 there, and that adds up, over time. So do you guys have any ideas as to why you might be seeing some of these layoffs happen in the tech space?
Well, it sounded like from the couple of pieces I read that people are trying to prepare for the recession that our government keeps trying to convince us is not going to happen. I mean, with inflation where it is and all the other economic factors, one company in particular that I looked at in a different article, Career Karma, actually laid off about a third of its workforce in the last like month or so, but they did it strategically so that they could have enough runway for the next 2 to 3 years. They literally admitted that they were cutting people so that they could keep their what hold on, I wrote it down, let me not um they have 3 years of funding now because they cut a third of their workforce. So and again, they admitted that they did it to prepare for what was coming and not need to do another raise and do another round. So I think a lot of companies, especially startups, if they're still being funded by venture capital, are sort of trying to project and anticipate what's coming and make the cuts now on the front end before it gets worse.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what, like you mentioned, Stephanie, about how the government is trying to talk us into the fact that we're not going into a recession.
You're not
I
seeing
mean,
it.
right, one of one of the main reasons why I can't think of the guy who was some dude from the government. One of the main reasons why he said we're not in a recession is because the jobs numbers look so good. Well, according to this story that we're reading, the subject that we're talking about, they may look good right now, but as soon as all these numbers start hitting, that companies are laying folks off, and then the rest of the numbers hitting about the jobs numbers slowing down because a bunch of tech companies are in hiring freezes right now. They ain't laying
Mhm.
people off, but they ain't hiring nobody for the next
Hmm.
6 months to a year.
That's
And
right.
even
So that stuff
rescinding
starts to
offers that
add
have
up.
they've already gone out. So yeah,
Mhm.
they're
Right.
stopping.
So the government can talk slick all they want to, which it
Right.
sounds like to me, this is personal, a side note, sounds like they trying to hold off until these midterms. And then after the
And that's
midterms
all.
hit,
And that's all. And that's
then
all.
they'd be like,
Oh
oh
yeah,
man, yeah,
yeah.
recession. Yeah, it's here
Exactly.
now. When
Exactly.
they don't want that to be a midterm sticking point as to why maybe possibly some of these political officials lose some of these jobs. Speaking of which,
Mhm.
they lose their own jobs. They're like, hey, the jobs look good because I don't want to lose mine.
But
So
it's
all that to
already too
say,
late though, because it's like even though gas is coming down, a gallon of milk is $5. I bought it was on sale, but the regular price for some bacon that I looked at the other day was like 14.99, and I was like, what? Like it just like stuff
mhm.
is just way too high. The rent is too damn high, and people already know what's coming, and these companies I think are again just trying to get ahead of it.
So,
Mhm.
like, so I was trying to, go out and see if I could find a lot of stories where they're talking about layoffs. And it's like they're out there. It's just not massive. It's kind of odd where you'll have a company that's laying people off and hiring people simultaneously. And I think one of the things we have to look at when they
Well,
say, wait,
well, say what they're doing, and this is just my personal opinion. It sounds like to me that they are getting rid of those, and I hate to be ableist or ageist, the older, higher paid, long time tenured quote unquote employees, and
See,
then they hiring these entry level, less expensive new
uh,
employees.
I would ag
That's what I would
I
assume.
would agree with that if it wasn't the tech companies. I think other
yeah,
companies do that all the time. I think with the
Hmm.
tech companies though, and again, I got this out of a Wire piece about the same topic. What we're going to see is all of that good old diversity that we got from George Floyd disappear,
Hmm.
because that's who the tech companies are
hmm
letting go. First, last hired, first fire kind of
first out,
deal.
right?
A lot of the people of color that have come into these tech spaces, over the last couple of years have been in HR and marketing and other sort of non-engineering functions. So those are always the first people to go, recruiters and stuff like that. And yeah, they're just looking for a reason. And I think some of them might have just been looking for a reason anyway, because they didn't want to be bullied into being woke and hiring these people in the first place. So they can then turn around and use this as an excuse. But we are definitely going to see a lot of the diversity gains that we got, because of George Floyd go away, honestly, just
Mm.
disappear into the thin
I
air.
specifically wrote when I did this little write up for this story that these layoffs are a direct result of the pandemic, because we can't ignore that people are being laid off because their companies got crushed during the pandemic, and they just haven't been able to come back, and this is all that they can do. Because they don't have that pandemic stimulus that's coming in to help them keep some of these employees employed.
Mhm.
That stuff worked. Depending on who you are, you may have liked it, you may have not have liked it, but you can't really argue with it did work. Well, we're not getting that stimulus anymore, so now okay, well, now I have to actually go do what I
Let's fire some
probably should have
people.
did two
Let's
years
fire
ago.
some
So let's
people.
fire some
Yep.
people, and they're using the pandemic as the cover. The other part is that some folks is like, we just want to trim some fat and let's blame it on the pandemic. Let's blame it on a recession that technically hasn't started yet, but we all know that is here. Those kind of things are happening as well. And Stephanie, as you were saying, I think a lot of this is going to be the brand new folks coming in, because another thing that's happening is that there are some folks at the top end of the scale who have been there forever, who know how everything works. And some of the issues that we've had with technology is that baby boomers and older generation X individuals are retiring out of their roles, and they're taking all of that knowledge with them.
Mhm.
But now these companies are begging and please stay, don't go, please stay, don't go. And they're finding, oh, wait a minute, I can stay at home, I don't have to work on Friday ever again. Okay, cool. I'll stay. So now sometimes those folks that just kind of know everything and are doing everything are making it harder to bring in those people, at the lower end, just because you're paying them so much more. So, so it's not the ageism thing that it could turn into at some point because it's tech, but they are keeping people at the top end maybe a little bit more readily than they were before the pandemic started, and definitely at the beginning of the pandemic, when older folks are like, I'm done, I don't need this job anymore, I'm out of here, I'm not trying to catch this thing. So
But
I
the
just thought this.
remote thing, I think is hurting the new people.
Hmm.
Working remotely is definitely being used as a reason to let newer people go. Also, I read something about the performance system, like how they do their performance reviews is still inherently biased. The AI that's supposed to be neutral, that's supposed to rank people fairly, and all the rest of that stuff is still biased against women and people of color. So, if you're trying to figure out some objective way to decide who gets fired based, on some sort of performance base, because I know Mark Zuckerberg was really on one at one point last month about, let's get rid of these low performing employees. But if your system for measuring performance is not accurate or fair, the people, who are typically underserved, women and people of color, are going to be the ones affected by that as well. So it's a lot of layers to these layoffs besides just the company saving money. And as usual, black and brown folks probably going to suffer the worst.
So all that being said, we have been on this show fairly bullish about if you can get yourself some tech skills, if you have been displaced because of the pandemic and you have the opportunity to go take a boot camp or take a course and you can actually learn how to do something in the IT space where you maybe were in a service oriented organization, you were working retail, you were basically doing something that didn't
Mhm.
require tech skills before, and you're hearing, oh, now they're laying off, do I need to go do something different? No, I'm not saying that.
No,
I
absolutely.
say absolutely still going to this. I didn't put this in our notes, but I just read it was actually a really good article. I think it was on Politico, and it was talking about here in Columbus, about literally about 10 miles from where I live, they're going to build these two big Intel foundries. We've talked
Mhm.
about this on the show before, and one of the issues that they're having, Columbus doesn't have the tech workforce to actually be able to go and fill these jobs. So you hear on the news all the time, we need to bring these H-1Bs back. We basically need to allow foreign born, or basically folks who are not from this country, who are coming into this country to go to school, and they get these high tech degrees. Instead of making them, after they get the degrees, you can't stay here, so you got to move to Canada, or you've got to move to the UK, where they're actually a little bit more accommodating for people with high end degrees that can do the work. Let them stay here. So, they're asking, they're trying to figure out how can we get some of these folks, because we're, as we talked about a week or two ago, we're just not graduating enough of our own, people to fill these roles. So that being said, I'm still very
Are
bullish
we
on
though?
tech. Uh,
Say, are we
yeah.
though? Only reason why I say that is because the bringing, quote unquote, bringing foreigners in, to me that still seems like a money play. I don't know how it works with benefits. I don't know how it works with incentives. I don't know how it works with
Oh,
pay
Yeah,
scales.
starting
But
salaries
to
and stuff like
me,
that.
less. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
to me it seems like, and again, this is me being a skeptic, bringing somebody in foreign, even with all the hoops you got to jump through, rather, to me, I guess if the numbers seem like, okay, well, that's still less expensive
Oh, it
than
still works out in their
hiring
Oh
favor.
yeah.
somebody.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. It
Right.
absolutely
So
still works out in their
I,
favor.
I I don't know how much that plays into companies. Oh, we can't find native born talent
Right.
because we're not graduating the same level. I don't know about that. When you can
Two
go
things
get
are
a
true.
certification,
Two
you
I
can go
things
get a
are true.
certification in six
yeah.
weeks.
I think they definitely just aren't intentional, and the will is just not there to, equip and train and look for and search and that whole thing. The will's just not there. It really ain't. And again, to Terrence's point, if you can go find somebody who you can pay half the price and give half the benefits to because they just happy to be coming to this country, then why wouldn't you?
Oh, that is a huge thing. Before we really put the kibosh on all these visas, that was a huge thing. I mean, we
Mhm.
don't have to go back that far to where, you would have somebody from India, and they've got the degrees, they've got the skill set, they can do the work, but they need a visa. So they'll actually work for less because they can get the visa and stay here while they work on getting a more permanent form of residence here, if not actually, getting U.S. citizenship. And they're doing that because, which is not inexpensive, but because they have the job, they're actually going after that. And then once they have that, once they're here permanently, then they go do whatever job they want, and get the pay that they, this commensurate with their skill set. That was a huge thing before. And we also talked about, I think it was 2 shows ago, where we were talking about how these tech companies, I think it was 500 or 600 tech CEOs,
Mhm.
basically
All signed a
with
pledge
code.org
and all
signed
the
a
rest
big
of that.
letter
Yeah.
to go do this. And I asked you guys about it. It's like, that's all cool. You guys want to help fund
Right.
it?
Put your money where your
Crickets
mouth
after
is.
that. So
Exactly.
like I said, so I didn't even stick that into the notes because I knew that would be where we go with it, because that's where this is. That's exactly where this story goes when you start talking about that. But like I said, that all being said, if you have the opportunity to move, like if you like working in the job you're working in, and, the service based, you absolutely keep that. But if you are looking to make a change, or if circumstances dictated that you make a change, I think that IT, going into tech, is something that can literally change your life, because the stories that we've been telling about people who are, 3 months after they got out of a boot camp, a month before the boot camp was over, they have a job. 3 months after they
Mhm.
have a job.
Oh yeah, a tech
You
career is
get a job
definitely
just by going to
changing
the boot camp.
lives.
It's changing
Absolutely.
lives, and
Changing
that's still
lives.
there. So I don't want people to be scared that, we're talking about 30,000 people, have been laid off this year, 6,000 just this month. Um, that's a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things, there's 338 million people in the country. So when
Right.
you look at 30,000 compared to that, this is just I don't even know if it rises to the, realm of rounding error. And I don't say that to be insensitive to the people who have got laid off. I absolutely understand that. But this isn't like we're saying 360,000 tech workers got laid off. It's 30,000. So we have to keep it in perspective, and we'll keep watching it because these numbers could go up. Like I said, we
Yeah,
ain't saying we're in a recession
definitely.
yet. It's like,
But
by the
when it gets
definition, we ain't.
official, yeah, when it gets official, we'll see what happens and how they respond. Because I mean, it just sounds like folk are panicking a little bit right now, and the employees, the workers always suffer.